Hello everyone, I would like to introduce you to Suzy, which is a kind of cliche name for a Suzuki, I'm sure. This is the bike I got in late August, when I realised that commute costs were just getting crazy, and I thought, well, I can minimise that a little bit. And so I jumped on the bike after, about 10 years not being on one, and I've really enjoyed it. I've been terrified at times, and it really is a learning experience again. When I first got the bike, when I first got her, shall I say? I don't know. I was obviously very nervous and had to reacquaint myself with, how to ride and, how to do that well. That's a whole other, thing. But I've really enjoyed it, and yeah, I've just upgraded to another bike. The bike I had 10 years back, a VFR 800. And so it's time for me to say goodbye to Suzy at some point soon. But I've got to say, even though I've got this vastly superior bike now, I love her. I do. We've had some really good moments, and I've just been for a lovely ride in the country. Just bombed along some lanes, and still a really enjoyable ride, even though I've been on the VFR for a bit. Which is, it's much more powerful, and it has a different riding position, and it's sharper. This is it's a lovely bike to just plod around on, and it's a bike I would definitely recommend to anyone that's starting up in motorcycling or returning to it. It's the right thing that I returned to this bike. Maybe I'd have said that about any bike, but the point is, I haven't been dissatisfied. I've been safe, I've had fun, I've learned a lot, and it's been relatively inexpensive. So, just summarising the whole video, hey, that's my opinion. You don't need to watch any more, unless you want to. Let's go. Here are just a few more facts about this one. So the GS500F. So the F is 2004 onwards, and it's the one with the fairing. So the GS500 E, I think you would call it, often used by riding schools. In fact, I learned how to ride on a bike like this, just without the fairing. I think it was in '98, and the reason why they're used in riding schools is because they're just so forgiving. They introduce you to the greater power of something more than a 125 in terms of the engine size, and it's a good bit of grunt. It's certainly all that a noob needs, but they're also really quite light, and also the seat height is quite low. So for people who are shorter like myself, and generally lots of women are a bit shorter as well, it's very forgiving, and it's very easy to use and learn on. So that's why they're so popular with riding schools. It's also why they're so good for noobs. And when I say noobs or returning riders, I don't mean to learn how to ride a motorbike. It's also about how to learn how to use one on the road, and they're completely different things. Passing the test is one thing, learning to ride and going out and getting experience on the road, it's another. And I'm still learning, obviously. I've only been riding again since late August, and it's just turned to April now, and I'm still working it out, but this has been a very forgiving ride while I've been doing that. So let's just go into nerdy facts, shall we? We've got a GS500F. This is a 2004, and it's actually like a 489cc or 487, something like that, but it was rounded up because that's what guys do, I suppose. It's a 51 horsepower engine, and if you're like me, that doesn't really mean much. I'm just giving you some facts, but the truth is, I can only give a sort of a user's guide, and this is just my opinion on a lot of stuff about whether it's good. And so I would say, apparently out of the factory, it would get you a quarter mile in 14 point something seconds. For a noob, or for me, that just translates to being as powerful as you need it to be. You don't need anything more than this bike generally for running around town, nice city use, and for roads like out here in the country. This is just so pleasant. You don't need anything more. You really don't. You're up doing 60 miles an hour before you know it, and it's pleasantly so. You're never lacking speed or power. You wouldn't want to do more on these roads. and you can't do more than that in a city. I've used this bike a lot for a 30-mile commute on the dual carriageway, and it's even held up there really, really well. It climbs up to 70 as easily as I need it to, and for times when you have to like pass around, you maybe go to 75 or something, never more than 77, obviously. It's always been able to do that. The only thing I've got against this bike on the motorway or dual carriageway is the weight. It's not as heavy as some bikes, and so I found myself checking wind speed more than rain in terms of the weather to see if it's a safe day to ride. In anything around 15 miles an hour, I've been hesitant to use the bike, mainly on the motorway, dual carriageway or something like that, because it's sometimes you can't go straight, but you also can't turn the corner. It's really difficult. So it is a lightweight bike, which again makes it great for noobs, for city and country use, and for correcting any errors like if you stop and you're on a camber or a slant like this, that can get the better of a noob. And so it's much easier when you're slow and the weight of the bike sets in. It's better that it's a lighter bike, especially with all those newbie mistakes which we all make, which I'm still making. But yeah, dry weight, this one is 174 kilograms. Wet weight, I think, is 198 or something, closer to 200. To put that into perspective, the dry weight of my VFR 800 is 204 or something. So even when that's empty, it's heavier. But even with a full tank of petrol, this is still quite light. And like I say, the seat height is low, so generally it's easy to move it around. Tires, it just for the information, by the way, the manual would say 36 psi and 39, just because you should know that. So for riding, it's all you would need, and mostly what you'd want. It's a lovely, comfortable, relaxed sort of sit back ride, and we'll start it up in a minute, but first I'll just talk about maintenance, because if you're getting into motorcycling, I'm sorry, but you have to know how to use some wrenches and tools. You at least have to know how to tend to regular maintenance. So stuff like, before you ride, you should be checking tire pressure. You should be checking the oil at least once a week, but keep an eye on that anyway. Obviously, brake fluid. This one doesn't have a hydraulic clutch; it's a cable clutch. So it just runs down here. So yeah, as a motorcyclist, you're going to need to know how to maintain the bike at least, and do stuff like oil changes, which are so regular. If you've got enough money to go to a garage every time to get the oil changed every 1,000 miles, then you're not going to buy this bike anyway. It's really easy to do all of the jobs on here. It's easy to replace brake fluid. It's easy to replace the oil. It's a case of perhaps warming the bike up, and then stopping it for a while because the oil will be hot, and then you open the sump plug at the bottom and you drain it out and you close it and you put the right amount of oil in. Don't overfill it. This one is a dipstick, much like myself. So you would check the oil that way when it's on a center stand. But hey, I'll do another video on simple maintenance of these. But the point is that when I got this bike in August, I knew nothing. But these bikes are easy to learn with, and because they're easy to learn, you can start taking charge of that. And so it's better to learn with a bike like this that's so simple and cheap to play around on and fix, than start learning on something that's more shiny, modern and complicated. So this is an air-cooled bike, so there's no complication of coolant. It's got a cable clutch, which is easy to replace yourself. Stuff like chain slack, checking your chain slack, you're going to need to do that a lot. You should always be checking that you've got the right amount of slack here, and you check it between, so you turn the wheel and you would check it at different points. But should you find you've got the wrong amount of chain slack, you would need to adjust that. But you'd loosen this up and then you would adjust it here, and there's one on the other side. But stuff like, you then need to make sure that you haven't put it out of line, the wheel out of alignment. So and and so you need a chain alignment tool, which is a £5 or £7. I'll put a link to one. Things like that you're going to need to get sort of accustomed to, but there are so many helpful groups on Facebook. People love these bikes. There are groups dedicated to this bike, and they're so helpful, and they'll send you how-to guides, and they'll send you pictures and give you step-by-step stuff. And what I would say is to just make sure you're in close contact with someone while you're learning some things. I'll put it in another video, but I did something in there and I almost went over the handlebars when the wheel locked at 25 miles an hour just before I went onto the M5, and that's because I made an error and I didn't have correct supervision. So be ballsy enough to try, just make sure you've got supervision. But for the most part, these are just fantastic. They really are. But I hope this has been a bit of valuable info on this bike, just a quick run through with me waffling. But look, you take the seat off. I should have shown you how to do that. Before I get rid of this bike, I love her, I will do some how-tos on simple things. But changing the battery, I've changed the battery, spark plugs, running lovely now. Neglected her a bit after a week when I got my VFR, but she started up lovely, so let's have a little look. Lovely, just runs lovely. And like I say, this bike for a noob or someone just getting back into it, learning how to ride again, all you need. I've really enjoyed having this bike. She's old, she's a little bit tatty. It's easy to learn how to maintain this bike. It's easy to get over those first sort of initial hurdles of how to maintain a motorbike and how to fix different things. It's been a good learning curve, a comfortable learning curve, and I think especially when you're riding, you're out on the roads and it's a dangerous thing to do. It's good to have a bike that's got your back, and it's a very forgiving ride. I'd keep her if I could, but yeah. Anyway, so I just wanted to sort of show my GS500F. I think she looks lovely, and if the fairing was all repaired and stuff, I think just absolutely lovely. Runs really well, only 50,000 miles, and they go on for a lot longer than that when they're cared for. Anyway, so is the Suzuki GS500F a good bike in 2022? Yep. One to be remembered.